So I created a video a couple weeks ago on how the UN has turned its back on Israel. And frankly, the UN has never, ever been on the side of Israel, never really supported Israel. It's always been very anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, even from its founding. So that's a given. A couple weeks ago, and you can see this on our homepage. So if you would actually go to our homepage on YouTube, and you'll see that right here, where we have all our videos and our podcasts, and go to where we have these standalone videos on today's news, and you'll find this video, which says, "Has the UN and the world turned against Israel?" That video has surprisingly stirred up a pretty significant amount of controversy. Out of all the videos we've ever produced, that one alone has produced probably double the amount of comments of all our other videos combined. And the vast majority of those comments are very, very anti-Israel, which is shocking, very, very surprising that many people have been indoctrinated into thinking that Israel is evil, that Israel is the wrong, and that Israel is the problem. The whole purpose for putting forth that specific video was to show that everybody's turning their backs on Israel, and Israel is not the problem. When we first started this podcast, clear back on our episode number 2, or only our second episode, we interviewed a gentleman named Selwyn Gordon, who is Jewish and from Israel and from South Africa, and kind of an expert in the situation. And we also sponsored in there a number of videos from a man who is the son of Hamas, literally the man who created the Hamas terrorist organization. His son left that country, left that type of life, and is now very, very outspoken against what these terrorist organizations are doing. And we sponsored that in a video as well. And again, if you go to our homepage, you'll be able to see that video on episode number 2. So if you scroll down to where our episodes are starting from, where it says "From the Beginning," you'll see the Hamas-Israel war, breaking down that conflict in its entirety. And it's a pretty profound video. Another thing we've noticed pretty rampantly is a lot of the commenters are probably listening to maybe the first 60 seconds of the video, and then they're scrolling on. Some reason there's a very, very low attention span there, and you're not getting all that information before you actually start commenting on the video. So try watching the whole video and the clips within those videos before you start making such negative comments on there where you really have no idea what you're talking about. Right now, we're going to go through probably about 50 little 1-minute videos. So it's going to be a sizable video here. But we're going to put to bed all this misinformation about Israel, and that for some reason, everybody thinks Israel's the problem. And if after this video you still think Israel's the problem, then you want to believe that Israel's a problem. You are anti-Semitic. You are against everything there is about Israel. You do not think they have a right to exist. You wholeheartedly believe in the quote from River to the Sea, and that we should just exterminate that state altogether. That is evil. That is wrong. And if you're still in that boat, God save you, because I don't know what else to tell you. But we're going to go through these videos anyway, and we're going to demonstrate from boots on the ground over there and from real videos from Muslim people that Israel is not the problem. Now, the first thing we keep running into is, oh, it's genocide. Israel's killing everybody over there. Or Israel is starving everybody. There's not any humanitarian aid getting to anybody. Israel's not saving the civilians. First and foremost, when you are in a war, it is not your obligation to save anybody in that conflict. We do not see Russia trying to save anybody in Ukraine or make sure that civilians are not harmed, or they're not killed, or they're not starved out. Vice versa, we don't see Ukrainians purposely trying to save Russian citizens when they're sending their drones over into Russian territory. It's not their responsibility. Even with us here in the United States, we did what we could to preserve civilians within Iraq and Afghanistan, but we were not obligated to do so. During World War II, World War I, Vietnam, Korea, we were not there to take care of those populations. We were there to win a war and get out. So that's the first misnomer, is for some reason Israel has this moral obligation to all of a sudden take care of Hamas and the Gazans. They have essentially been their own ruled state since 2002, 2005. That is not their obligation. Second, they're doing it anyway. They're still trying to get humanitarian aid in there, but it is being stopped by Hamas and it is being stopped by the UN. Hamas is taking control of that aid and then selling it to the highest bidder, to their own people, so that they can fund their own activities, what they're physically doing themselves in trying to get rid of Israel. They are not there to help their own people out. They are specifically using their own people, one, as human shields, as they put these rockets, or were putting those rockets in hospitals and schools on purpose, so that it forced Israel to drop bombs on those facilities or to get rid of those rockets, and then they claimed all this collateral damage, which they knew was going to happen, and that is the propaganda that they want to get out there in order to control the media cycle and control the news cycle, which is what the left and extremists wholeheartedly want to follow, because they're just as anti-Israel and anti-Jewish state as Hamas is and as these extremist Muslims are. They want to believe that rhetoric. So you have these media organizations purposely fomenting this false narrative that Hamas is coming up with, that Israel's the problem. Now, again, we're going to go through these videos and prove this. Why isn't humanitarian aid getting to the people, other than that Hamas is stealing it and then using it to fund their own operations? The other issue is, like I expressed in that previous video, the UN is refusing to help the Gazan civilians as well. They are purposely using them and using the sob story that it creates to foment animosity and hatred against the Israeli state. The UN is guilty of that. Hamas is guilty of that. They purposely do not want their people getting that aid, so that, again, it controls the news cycle, and all we talk about is how Israel is starving their own people out, or starving the Gazans out, which, again, is not the responsibility, one, and two, is not true anyway. So as we looked at these videos,
I'm here at the Gaza border at the Kerem Shalom crossing. Right now we're on the Israeli side. In just a few moments we're going to be crossing into Gaza. I'm going to give you an inside look at what's happening at the depot, where hundreds of trucks of humanitarian aid are entering the Gaza Strip every month in order to be distributed. I'm here in the Gaza Strip, and I'm at the distribution center where thousands of pallets of aids are just waiting to be distributed. Let's take a closer look at what's happening here. Walking around this area, I think it's incredibly frustrating that we're seeing the accusations that we're seeing right here from the UN, accusing Israel of intentional starvation, all kinds of crimes against humanity that are simply not the case when you actually look at the facts on the ground. Now, is there suffering in Gaza? Of course. Are there pockets of hunger? Absolutely. Which is why you see this distribution center with thousands of pallets of aid just waiting to be delivered. This is literally, as far as the eye can see, you see humanitarian aid waiting for distribution. Even on the way into the Gaza Strip, we saw that there was a long line of cars waiting, some of them UN cars. Hopefully they're actually delivering that aid. But you can see here that there are just pallets upon pallets upon pallets of aid waiting to be distributed. Again, medicine being donated to the people of Gaza, yet not being distributed. Sanitary supplies. Here we have a collection of aid from the UAE. Again, not being distributed by the United Nations. I have behind me aid from Egypt, and you can see sitting in the sun, rotting. Aid is literally just rotting here because the United Nations isn't picking it up. Well, at the same time, running an entire disinformation campaign across media and social media accusing Israel of being the obstacle. As you can see, the hundreds of boxes here for the United Nations are not yet being distributed. You can see here UNICEF for every child, but apparently not for the children of Gaza.
So there's your first video of an American on the ground there showing that the aid is there. It has been there for a long time, and UN is specifically not trying to get it distributed. And purposely doing so again, that goes against Israel and shows the world that Israel is a problem. The UN does not want an Israeli state. They could care less if there was a genocide, that if the Holocaust happened again, they would just, oops. I mean, that's literally the mentality of that. And that's the mentality of a lot of our news organizations. And that's the mentality of a lot of the commenters in our own podcast section who literally want to see the Israelis and the Jews just die and just cease to exist. I mean, that is the mentality. Sadly enough, they're trying to hide it. They're trying not to be that blatant with their beliefs, but that is their beliefs. And if you don't want to believe one video, let's look at a couple more of the same exact thing.
This is Gaza. That is Egypt. That is Israel. And this is all the food that Israel has let into Gaza and the UN is letting rot in the sun. Gaza has a food shortage because the Hamas savages who started this war are fighting from inside civilian areas and still holding and torturing and starving hostages under their tunnels. In any other sane place in the world, civilians would be allowed to leave. The UN would tell them to walk 1, 2, 3 miles to Egypt, where it could set up stations for them to get food and medical care and anything they need. And this is the only war zone in the world where civilians are told they must remain trapped in a war zone in active combat areas. Why would any humanitarian want civilians to be trapped inside a war zone instead of being allowed to cross the border into Egypt to get safety?
We already know why they don't want the civilians getting out. Why? Because they need the civilians to suffer. They need the news footage in order to get out there and foment this hatred and animosity against Israel. That is the plan. That has always been the plan, is the world turns against Israel. Now, those of us who are Christian or Bible-believing Christian, we knew this has been written in the Bible for a very, very long time, that the world would turn against Israel, and that the only thing that would save Israel would be the second coming of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. But with or without that belief, we know that this is real, that the UN and the rest of the world are purposely turning against the Jewish state, and for some reason, the Muslims are getting all the support. Yet the Muslims, as we'll show later on in this same video, want to destroy the world. They want to conquer the world, and it is going to be, or they want it to be, Sharia law everywhere. No governments, no freedom, just Sharia law. It means all women in burqas, all women enslaved, all children abused. And we're going to show a lot of videos in this video of how that abuse happens right now. But again, if you don't want to believe the aid, we're going to try a couple more of these videos.
Well, hello from the Gaza Strip. I am now at the Humanitarian Aid Distribution Center for the United Nations. Now, this site has been the center of controversy in recent days because of the failure of the United Nations to distribute the thousands of pallets of aid that are sitting here and have been sitting here for many weeks. Now, we spoke with a senior IDF officer just a few moments ago who confirmed that over 5,000 trucks have been approved and moved into the Gaza Strip waiting to be distributed. Just looking around this area, we've seen that there is medicine, aid being shipped from the United Arab Emirates. We've seen aid specifically designated for the United Nations, hundreds of pallets of flour, baby food, and other critical supplies that the people of Gaza are not receiving as a result of the UN failing to do their job. The IDF also confirmed that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is a separate distribution center nearby, has distributed over 95 million meals since aid was reinstated on May 19th. The UN, however, has confirmed, according to their data, that approximately 87% of the convoys of the aid trucks that are picked up by the United Nations have been looted, either by Gazans on the ground or by Hamas on the ground inside Gaza. One of the things that was specifically mentioned earlier is that there are now 4 different humanitarian aid crossings that are operational. There are hundreds of trucks coming in every single week, providing critical supplies to the people of Gaza. In addition to that, the IDF has taken more steps in recent days to provide more humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza, including airdrops of aid provided by Jordan and the UAE, as well as ensuring humanitarian corridors, pauses in fighting in order to better distribute that humanitarian aid, and additional measures.
So Israel is obviously trying to get around the UN not getting out there and distributing it. Now, UN's getting a lot of pressure, and some trucks are getting through, but that is only to create a visual on the news that they're doing something. One, on the other side of their hands, they're still taking all these videos and showing that Israel is not letting them through. They're trying to foment a false narrative that Israel's only let a few of our trucks through when the gates are wide open and they can put through as many trucks as they want to into that humanitarian crisis that is there. Even Israel's allowing airdrops. The U.S. has added aid stations, and Trump has specifically put up aid stations where that humanitarian aid can get past Hamas. Because we're going to show you a couple videos here where Hamas is purposely, like she just said, confiscating that aid and literally cutting off the arms and hands of any of the Gazans who are accepting aid from the infidel, from the Zionists, which is what they call both Israel and the United States. So again, another video.
I'm currently standing right here, surrounded by aid that has gone to waste. Now, we continuously have heard about famine. Famine, famine, famine. Gazans are dying, civilians are dying, and it's Israel's fault. Now, help me in this moment where I'm now going to ask you exactly how is it that the aid is sitting here rotten and has gone to waste, but the two entities that have linked hands, one being a so-called humanitarian organization, the United Nations and all of its antennas that are linked to it, right? And Hamas, a terrorist entity, have made this the reality of Gazan civilians. This is not because Israel has stopped aid or has not made sure that aid has gone in to Gaza. This is because the aid is sitting here rotten. And how do we know that this is what's going on? I'm physically here in Gaza, where this is the reality of what's been going on. So again, I ask you, who is actually making this a thing?
She is physically there in Gaza, where it's the problem. So again, all you commenters that think this isn't real, prove these videos wrong. I mean, you've got 3 people there that are on site demonstrating this. And we're just going to keep going here. Like I said, we got 50 videos, 1 or 2 minute videos that we're going to go through here. So this is probably going to be a 2-hour video. And we're going to go video by video and make this the ultimate video where all this is compiled, demonstrating that Israel's not the problem. So if you really want to know the truth, keep watching this video. If you want to make yourself blind and refuse to believe it, yeah, go ahead and go on to the next video. Flip that page over and go on to the next video. But if you want really true information, true facts, this is where you're going to get it, because we've compiled all these videos to show exactly what's happening, not just from Israel, but from Muslim and Arab perspective. So we're just going to keep going here. So you've got Hamas, and that's Hamas, littered with guns, beating the Gazans off the trucks. Because and I have other videos, I don't know if I have it in here, but that show Hamas taking control of the trucks, the UN trucks that go in, speeding through town to make sure that nobody gets a hold of the truck, or they're not moving slow enough to where any of the Gazans can get any of the aid on the trucks. And then they rushed into one of their Hamas warehouses and refused to give any of the aid to their own people. Any of it. And they purposely hold that aid to create, again, this narrative that Israel's causing the problem. Or they're purposely holding that aid and then selling it to their own people so that they can support their terrorist organization. And there's evidence coming out right now that the UN is roundabout supporting a terrorist organization and knowing that they're supporting a terrorist organization. Because the UN is now purposely giving that aid to the Hamas organizations and saying, here's the aid, you guys can control it, and then going around and putting money into the hands of the Gazans so the Gazans can go and then buy that aid at extreme prices, which the money then goes to their terrorist organization, so that the UN can now say they're not supporting a terrorist organization, but on the backside, they're fully funding it, knowing that they're fully funding it. And people are going to say, well, that's not true. I've got videos of that to prove that as well.
احنا هسه محل لا على هويه بتسلم ولا على بصمه العين، كل غزه اخذت. الناس بتاخذ كرتونه وثلاثه. تاعت حماس بدنا لك تروحش على امريكان، يخلف على امريكان هم بدونا طحين واكل. اسامه حمدان في قطر شبعان نايم تحت المكيفات هو ونسوانه واولاده، بقول لك ما حدش يروح، احنا بنراهن على ايش؟ على صمود شعبنا. صمود مين يا حبيبي؟ تعال تفرج كيف الناس، تفرج كيف الناس جعانه بتروح. نصيحه من الشعب لحماس، سلموا وراقك وروحوا، دمرت غزه يا عم، ارحمونا من شيء الامن يا ارحمونا. كان في ترامب وصلتنا يا حماس. يخلف على ترامب طعمينه وحماس بتجوع مشهد يا عالم. حماس اللي بتقول لك مقاومه وسلاح وشعبنا صامت، تفرج كيف الناس كل قطاع غزه بروح عند الامريكان عشان يطعموهم. يخلف على ترامب، ثانك يو ترامب، انا اللي بطعميني هذا يخلف عدينه. احسن ما واحد يجي من تعاون حماس تعاون قطر يقول لي ايش؟ خليك في دارك وما تشاركوش الاسرائيليين الامريكيين في هذا المشروع، لا بدنا نشاركهم، بدنا ناكل. تعال طعميني وبديش اروح على الامريكان، بس تعال طعميني ما تضلكش صامت في قطر وانت نايم ومكيف.
بقول اسامه حمدان،
بقول حسبي الله فيك وفي اولادك كمان، وان شاء الله تذوق اللي ذقناه. احنا بنقول حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل في حماس، ان شاء الله تذوق اللي ذقناه.
ايش تقول لاسامه حمدان؟
ايش بقول لاسامه حمدان؟ تعال اقعد عندنا، فاوض معنا، جوع معنا، موت معنا. ايش بدنا نقول له؟ هو وابنه والنور وكل القيادات، حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل عليهم، الله يجعلهم يذوقوا اللي ذقناه.
احكي لنا تفاصيل.
التفاصيل والله احنا وصلنا ما اخذناش حاجه. في ناس من الشعب اخذ 50 كرتونه وفي ناس ما اخذش ولا كرتونه، احنا بدنا نظام لهذا الكلام. وشعب بلا مؤاخذه ماشيين كله من القل ومن الجوع.
كان في آلية تفتيش؟ في
لا في تفتيش ولا في آلية، الامريكان واقفين على جنب والصحيح.
ايش رسالتك لاسامه حمدان والمفد المفاوض؟
اسامه حمدان بدنا واقف حرب احنا، واللي بفاوضوا مش حاسين فينا مشهان، بياكلوا خرفان وبياكلوا كباب، مش حاسين فيها الشعب الجعان. هاي رسالتي، وبدنا واقف حرب. ويعطيك العافيه.
So actually thanking Trump for getting food there. And Trump specifically announced this saying, look, Hamas is taking all the food. They're selling it back to their own people. UN is not getting out there and distributing it. We're going to go do it ourselves. And he sent trucks in there to distribute it. And obviously, when people are desperate and hungry, it gets kind of out of control and the food just gets thrown out everywhere. But you can specifically see the Palestinians and the Gazans thanking Trump for feeding them and turning against Hamas and their own leadership, saying, we want the war to end. We're done with this. Stop using us as your pawns. We just want food and we want peace now. In the beginning, obviously, there's a lot of Gazans who were for their leadership and actually participated in November 7th atrocities on killing Israelis. But now that they've gone through all this suffering, there's some humility coming in there, and now they're at a point where they're done. They just wanted to end. They just want to go back to their lives. And that's all Israel has ever wanted. Again, I get a lot of comments in my comments section saying that Israel is the one that's gone against any of the ceasefires. Israel has never gone against a single ceasefire. It has always been Hamas. It has always been these organizations. Sharia law states that once you've gained a territory, you cannot retreat from it. And at one point, they believe that they had that territory and they cannot retreat from it. They also believe that the world needs to practice Sharia law. No, it doesn't matter if they have all these other sects, they believe that the world needs to practice Sharia law. And they are not going to allow the Jewish state to be there. And we're going to get to these other videos.
I'm Richard Kemp here at one of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation's distribution centres inside Gaza. You will have heard a lot of propaganda about violent attacks in and around the GHF sites here. It's all lies generated by Hamas in order to discredit the GHF. The Hamas hate the GHF because the GHF delivers aid directly into the hands of the Gazan people without being seized by Hamas and sold at a profit. Very many of the people behind me here have told me it's the first time they've ever received free aid. So don't believe the propaganda that's been churned out by Hamas and amplified by too much of the international and national media.
So again, try not to believe me, but there's evidence. A guy, boots on the ground, British guy, saying that there are people standing right behind him that have never received free aid. And all that aid is free. It's only getting sold to them because Hamas takes control of it and tries to sell it to its own people at the highest amount so they can support their terrorist organization. That's the way it's been from the beginning. You don't want to believe white guys? Well, here's somebody from Egypt saying the same thing.
المشكلة يا جماعة ايه هي؟ هو عايز المساعدات تروح له هو ويبيعها. دلوقتي عايز ياخد المساعدات اللي احنا بنبعتها مجانا ويبيعها لهم عشان ياخد فلوس. يسرق المساعدات بتاعت الشعب الفلسطيني، احنا مودينها للناس اللي بتموت مش موديها لحماس. يا خليل قدامك اهو الشاحنات دي داخله النهارده. طب بتاع حماس اللي قاعد في النفق ما بيشوفش، هو هربان. سايب المواطن الفلسطيني يموت وقرر انه يضحي بالشعب الفلسطيني.
I don't know how much clearer we're going to get here. I'm going to just keep doing this all day here, showing that Israel's not the problem, that Hamas is the one starving out their own people. I mean, first they used them as human shields and put their rockets where Israeli bombs were going to bomb them, and then now they're starving out their own people. Then numbers are coming out that probably only about 40,000 Gazans have died, and that is civilians and military combined. And the numbers are coming out that probably 19,000 of the 40,000 or 50,000 is straight military. So yeah, there's a lot of collateral damage happening right there. But Israel, their first priority is their own people and their own country. And when you had thousands of rockets coming in every single night from both Hamas, from the Gaza Strip, and then coming in from Iran, they have every right to defend themselves, every right to defend themselves to the full extent. The United States was not doing anything less. In fact, we'd probably be doing worse. We'd be probably obliterating them even more than they're already being obliterated. We would have zero tolerance for this. Any country in Europe would have even less tolerance than we would have. Imagine Russia. If Russia was getting bombed like this, they would probably commit genocide and just obliterate everybody. Why does Israel have this fake standard that everybody's putting onto them where they cannot defend themselves as a normal country? For some reason, no one lets them be a normal country that's allowed to defend themselves, that's allowed to exist. For some reason, that doesn't exist. Now we're going to go into the brutality of Hamas and prove to you that Hamas is the one doing all the killing, that Hamas is doing the genocide. It is not Israel. Because again, I get all this, that Israel is the one causing the genocide. They're the one killing women and children. Not true. Hamas is killing their own people. And we're going to show these videos and prove that Hamas is the problem, that the extremist Sharia law is the problem, and it is spreading like a virus.
Hamas is killing its own people, not by accident, not in the middle of a crossfire, but in cold blood. Uday Nasser Rabi'i, the 22-year-old Gazan, the civilian protester, was barbarically tortured by Hamas, then to be executed. Uday's death does not fit the narrative, so no one cares, because he does not fit the story the people want to tell. But we are not here for narratives, we are here for the truth. And the truth is that Hamas is silencing its own people by killing them and massacring them in the streets simply for demanding a better future for the Gaza Strip, a future without Hamas. Now let us talk about the hypocrisy. When Mahmoud Khalil, a Colombia protester, was arrested in the US, the pro-Palestinian voices flooded the social media with posts demanding his release. The protest started from Washington, D.C. to London, but when a Palestinian, a Gazan protester, Uday Nasser Rabai, is executed by Hamas, no one even talked about him. The silence is deafening. We need to stop pretending that justice only matters when it's convenient. Palestinians deserve to be free from the tyranny within. We need to stand for the protesters in Gaza, for the ones whose voices will never be heard again.
Hamas is killing its own people, purposely. They want the narrative out there, and every single time they slaughter their own people, they'll take video and pictures of it, and they pretend that and try to demonstrate in some way, shape, or form that the IDF did it. The Israeli Defensive Forces, they did it. It wasn't us. We didn't kill our own people. That's the lie. And those of you who think otherwise, you're either one, deceived by the lie, or two, you don't care what the truth is because you just don't like Israel. You don't believe that they should exist. You don't believe they should be there, and you don't care what happens to them, honestly.
They did it with glee. They were deeply proud. Woo! Woo! You see people taking the head off a young Israeli man with a shovel and then calling their parents back in Gaza and telling them, Father, Father, I've killed 10 Jews with my own hands. Get mother on the phone. I want to tell her how great a job her son has done. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Even the Nazis were actually ashamed of what they did. They tried to cover their crimes up. Hamas are actually proud of them. They did it with glee.
Hamas is evil. It's an ideology that foments evil. The Sharia Law part of the Muslim religion begs for this, approves this, and wants these type of actions because that's what they believe Allah wants. They full-heartedly believe in the destruction of everybody else but themselves, starting with the Jewish people. And they are proud of the killing. They're proud of the rape. You will never, ever catch an Israeli doing that. They're not out there fomenting this type of evil, this type of violence, purposely trying to kill the Gazans. There's been nobody else out there trying to save more Gazan lives than the Israelis and trying to end this and get rid of Hamas in the fastest and most humanitarian way possible. There's a lot of hatred against Netanyahu. And Netanyahu is going out there publicly saying, we want to get rid of Hamas, and once Hamas is gone, then we want to help Gazans rebuild. We're going to go in and take control, and that's the big taboo thing the last few days, is all of a sudden not Netanyahu saying that we're going to go in and we're going to take complete control of Gaza. They have to, because they're going to have to go door by door, tunnel by tunnel, and literally get out 100% anything that has to do with Hamas. They're going to have to go person by person, because Hamas dress just like civilians. There's no uniform that they wear saying that, hey, I'm Hamas and these people are civilians. That's not how it works. They're going to have to go person by person and make sure that they're not members of Hamas. And if they're just Gazan civilians, figure out a way to take care of them and help them live. But they have every right to do that. They have every right to exist. They have every right to get rid of this evil. And anybody that says otherwise are, again, one, completely anti-Israel, want that country destroyed and not even existing. Or two, you just got a completely different set of rules for Israel than you do for any other country out there. Because we wouldn't allow that to happen. We'd be going door by door within our own borders to make sure that that did not exist. If we had a terrorist organization within our own borders, the police and others would be going door by door trying to find them.
We've seen them laughing and having glee over the bodies as they cut someone's head off. Mm-hmm. They were calling their parents saying, Abu, Abu, father, father, I killed a Yehudi, I killed a Jew. And the father was saying, oh, Allah Akbar, praise God, praise God. We've seen when they took the hostages into Gaza that everyone was celebrating and cheering. They were cheering.
Literally cheering the death of the Israelis. I know there's a lot of people in my comments section, they're gung-ho for that. Let's cheer for that as well. I mean, that's how bad the anti-Semitism is. That's how bad it is that people believe that Israel is a problem and want to believe Israel is a problem and are literally pushing for genocide. Can't believe how many people in my own comments section are saying, well, why are we funding Israel? Why are we sending $3 billion a year over there? Which is nothing to our budget. $3 billion is penny change in our Medicaid, in our Medicare, and how much we waste on illegal immigrants in this country. It's pennies compared to how much foreign aid we've sent to Ukraine and other nations around the world. We've sent more to Hamas and ISIS. We've sent more money to the Taliban, who we were fighting against, and ISIS, who we were fighting against, has received more money. I mean, they're receiving upwards of $5-6 million a day from us, which is insane that we're supporting those terrorist organizations, but we are in cash. So don't talk to me about the $3 billion to Israel. If Israelis' neighbors would leave them alone, we wouldn't have to be sending them anything. But we know for a fact that Iran and Hamas, the Gaza Strip, they're not going to leave them alone. And if you think Egypt is that peaceful, they're not, because the Muslim Brotherhood over there want to get rid of the Israelis just as much as everybody else. The only people out there trying to stop war are probably the Saudis, who are economists at this point. They care more about the money than anything else. Let's keep up with the violence here and just kind of prove this a point.
I was shaking while I was watching it.
It started with just scenes of Hamas killing people. Eventually we got to the sexual assault part. We saw 2 different women lying on the grass, naked from the waist down. One of them had her panties just ripped to the side. And then we moved to the eyewitness, and she's describing how she saw a woman being raped by several Hamas terrorists, how they pulled her hair, how they tossed her from terrorist to terrorist, and they cut her breasts off. At the very end, the guy who was raping her shot her in the head, and then he finished. So he continued to rape her after he shot her in the head. It scars me that people are able to do these kinds of things in the 21st century, but there are also people who refuse to believe it, despite the overwhelming evidence, despite us journalists sitting there. I'm watching this only so I can tell people, once again, this happened.
Try to deny this. I mean, that's a Dane. That's a Danish journalist. That's not a U.S. journalist. It's not an Israeli journalist. It's not even an English journalist. That's a Danish journalist saying, I saw this in person. Literally, they shot her in the head and then continued to rape her after she was dead. That is sick and disgusting. But yet, that is what Hamas does. That's what they did on November 7th to the Israelis. When they took over that concert and were raping and killing children, teenagers there, babies. Yes, they were raping babies, and there was evidence and proof of that. Hamas is evil, and those of you that still, after these videos, want to tell me that Israel's a problem, you are evil. We're going to keep going.
The irony is I'm the only person at this table who's actually risked my life to advocate for Palestinian children. I spent 2 years in and out of Jenin, Ramallah, Tulkarm, and Nablus. I'm the one who interviewed Hamas firsthand. I interviewed Islamic Jihad firsthand. I sat with the Al-Aqsa Martyr Brigades, and they told me to my face that they want war. This is not about Hamas. This is about an ideology, and the ideology is
radical. You don't wipe an
ideology
ideology out by bombing an ideology.
Children in their schools, in their textbooks, to revere death, to love death and not to love life. And they use those population as human shields. This is what you get, a terrorist state and a democracy fighting on an asymmetric battlefield and a completely impossible place. Because how are they supposed to defeat Hamas when there's no food shortages, but there is starvation?
They destroyed Gaza and they have not defeated Hamas. All right, here's what we're going to do. Bakari Sellers, you got 10 seconds, then go on a break.
That's the problem right there. You got the very news anchors trying to shush her because the truth is getting out. They don't want the truth out. It doesn't meet their narrative. She was there. She knows that Hamas is starving their own people on purpose or selling them goods. She was there and saw the atrocities in person. And she's not a full-blown conservative. But she saw it in person, and here on Face the Nation, she's trying to get the truth out, and yet it's still trying to be shushed. That's how bad the denial is. That's how much people want that false narrative. That's how much they hate Israel and are purposely trying to deceive the public into believing that Israel is the problem. This is evil, how bad the narrative has gotten out there and how bad people still want to push this false narrative.
How many women, how many children do you think you've raped over the years?
لهذه الفترة بقيت وياهم تقريبا أقارب تقريبا بالخمس سنوات. بالنسبة لنا كانوا صغار 15 16 ولا كبار تقريبا أقارب فوق 200 سنة.
What was going through your mind? Talk to me. Tell me what you're thinking when these girls are screaming for you to stop and you don't, you continue.
والله هي حالة ممارسة الجنس. يعني كل شخص ما يقدر ينفصل عن هذا الشيء. يعني هي إرادة قوية.
That's the BBC. Tell me they're not biased. But he has raped down 15, 16-year-olds, 9-year-olds, and he's saying over 50 of them. And she's asking him specifically, what's going in your mind when they're screaming, telling you to stop? And he's like, I can't control it. So you're just an animal then. Literally, you're just a beast, have no self-control, no control over the natural man, and your animal instincts have kicked in, and you don't care what kind of abuses and atrocities or harm you cause to another human being. That's Sharia law for you right there. That's extremist Muslim behavior. This is Hamas. Continue to try to deny what I'm trying to put out here right now.
I ask the UN, the Arab League, and everyone who has been raising the Palestinian flag since October 7, where is the flag of Yemen? In my country, 500,000 people have died in the last 10 years. The biggest famine and humanitarian crisis in modern history. Why does no one care when 500,000 Yemenis die? What about Sudan? In less than 2 years, more than 150,000 people have been killed. Where is the flag of Sudan? What about Syria? 500,000 Syrians have been killed. Where is the Syrian flag? High Commissioner, why is it that when Arabs kill millions of Arabs, no one bats an eye? Where is the outrage? And where are the protests? Why don't you mention the Houthis in Yemen, who have spent millions of dollars firing missiles at Israel instead of feeding my starving people? May I ask why your report mentions Israel 188 times, yet fails to mention the Islamic regime in Iran even once? How can you speak about the conflict while ignoring the party that has armed, trained and funded terror proxies like Hamas, Hezbollah and the Houthis, who have been bombing Israel thousands of times? And why is Qatar sitting here as a member of the Human Rights Council when they host the Hamas terror leaders in luxury hotels?
I mean, you got a Yemenis guy fully displaying the atrocities here. The people in Sudan, hundreds of thousands, people in Yemen, Iran, all dying in extreme numbers, hundreds of thousands of them. Yet, because it doesn't meet a narrative, because it doesn't meet what they want to have happen to Israel, and they want to destroy Israel and make sure Israel ceases as a country, the UN wants that. Because it doesn't meet that narrative, they don't mention any of it. Yet when Israel goes and defends themselves and 40,000 people or 50,000 people die, all of a sudden they're up in arms. And everybody's against Israel. Like he said in the report, 188 mentions of Israel in their report, but yet no one else is mentioned. It's like here in the United States, when there's black on black crime, no one says a thing, nothing. The news media is silent. Why? Because it doesn't meet the narrative. Yet when there's white on black crime, it hits every news station's out there because it meets the narrative. We got to stop with the narratives and just put out the truth. And if you don't see the truth, you need to find the truth. And if you hear the truth, you need to believe the truth. Because this is the truth. And I'm sure I'm going to get a whole bunch of negative comments here in my comment section, just like I have before. But those of you who are still denying this after all these videos, you want Israel to die. You want them to cease to exist. You are anti-Semitic. You do not care about their lives. You don't care if there's another Holocaust or genocide. For some reason, you support the terrorists and Sharia Law more. And whatever's in your head that wants you to support that is just straight up evil. We're going to play a couple of Joe Rogan clips here if you really don't want to believe that. I mean, Joe Rogan's the biggest podcaster on the planet right now. Let's see what he has to say.
And there is no moral equivalence, in my view, between what Hamas did and what Israel is doing. Because Hamas intentionally killed people on the basis of their race. It intentionally stabbed people to death. It intentionally threw hand grenades into safety shelters in which families were hiding. It intentionally raped and stripped and murdered women. It did it on purpose, intimately, face to face, with knives and guns and bombs, because they are Jews. Right? That was a fascistic assault on Israel. What Israel is doing, and I don't accept the idea that they are purposely targeting civilians or that they kill those aid workers on purpose. I just don't think that's true. So what Israel is doing, there is collateral damage to Israel's just pursuit of Hamas.
There's going to be collateral damage, but it's still a just pursuit, so you can't believe everything you hear. Here's another one for you.
Israel has never, not one time in history, initiated any conflict. If every one of the people in Gaza laid down the arms and stopped attacking, what would I, Israel, do to you?
It's a good question.
Nothing. If that was switched, where I, Israel, you, Hamas in Gaza, I take all of my arms and all of my protection and I laid them down, what would Hamas do? They would kill every single one of us. That's what they do. That's what they're sworn to do. That's their motto and the origin of their existence, all the way back to the Grand Mufti traveling to Hitler to ask, how do we solve the Jewish problem?
He couldn't have said that better. If Israel or if Hamas laid down all their arms and said, hey, we're done, not a single more person would die. Nothing would happen. Everybody would go back to peace. Everybody would go back to work. There's plenty of Arabs within Israel right now that love living in Israel because they're freer there in Israel than they would be in Jordan or in Egypt or any of these other Muslim countries. They love the freedoms they are. They work peacefully amongst the Israelis. They live peacefully amongst the Israelis. And the Gazans could do the same thing as well if they would let down the ideology. It is the ideology that is the problem. They have to let that go. And we all know that they won't. It is not going to happen. They're going to have to cease to exist. And that is what Netanyahu is doing. He's going in there and everybody with that ideology has to cease to exist. They have to die. Because that's the only way that they're going to live in peace. Because they will not let this go. Now, if Israel were to let down all their arms, just like Tim Kennedy said here, guys would go in there and slaughter every single one of them without 30-second hesitation. They'd go and slaughter every single one of them. That is the difference between Israel and Hamas. Israel would go for peace and let them live, and Hamas wouldn't. They'd slaughter every single last one of them.
I was entering Gaza, and I told you before, I have Arab suppliers, I have Arab neighbors, and Arab friends. When I was entering Gaza, and there is a video of that, I saw 100% of civilians celebrating me being taken. I didn't know about the other hostages. I thought it was only me. I didn't know about that. All I saw is 100% of civilians lynching me, beating me up. I was with a broken leg. I had bruises all over my body.
So the civilians in Gaza are not innocent in this. And everybody says, well, you got to keep them alive. And we've always known from the beginning, when October 7th happened, it wasn't Hamas soldiers that were going into Israel and raiding that concert and kidnapping and raping women and children and taking all those hostages. It was normal, everyday Gazan civilians doing that. And they were proud of doing it. And like we saw in previous videos, they were calling home and telling their parents, I just killed 20 Jews. I just raped these women. And they were proud of that. It is only now that they're going through as much suffering as they are right now, and the starvation, and Hamas treating them so badly as human shields, as puppets, that their mindset is finally flipping and they just want everything to end. And they're turning against Hamas. But in the beginning, they were not. So don't think the civilians are innocent, because they're not innocent in this. They were celebrating the kidnapping of those hostages and the murder of innocent people. Celebrating it.
Do you think it got to a point where there's so much hatred in between one group versus the other, when it's just people that are literally living on the other side of the road?
They are living in different territory. They are living in different land, under different reality. I used to be there. I was part of the occupation. Okay, I was the mayor. I was the mayor there for what? To serve them. I created jobs for them. We were blamed during the years that we are not a democracy because we are occupiers. Okay, so what we did is we implemented Oslo. So they will be ruled by a different entity, not by us. And yes, the PA came there, Yasser Arafat came there, they took over it, and it came out worse. And then Hamas took it, and it became way worse than that. And then ISIS entered Gaza. You know, one of the things that I want to be clear about is the evolution of evil. Because when people say Hamas is ISIS, they flatter Hamas. It's a compliment.
They flatter ISIS or Hamas?
Hamas. It's a compliment to Hamas. What happened to them is that they are an entity worse than ISIS. Because even ISIS in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Idlib, they raped women. We know that. But not 25 terrorists on one woman. They raped women. We know that. Yeah. But they didn't cut the breast and played football with the breast that they cut. They raped women. We know that. But they didn't. But they kept her alive later on. Or they killed her with a bullet in the head and not the bullet between her legs. Or we found her with open legs burned. They killed, and we've seen executions that they succeeded to cut the head of somebody, but they never cooked a baby in an oven, okay? That's the difference. So when you say they are ISIS, you flatter them. They are more evil than the devil. And I'm not a guy that you can blame historically that I have something against them. I was the mayor of Gaza. I'm the only IDF officer that they honored me, and they named a kid after me. It's an honor. And I cannot tell you today what I feel. It's not, I don't hate them. I just feel nothing.
So you have the mayor of Gaza, and he's Israeli, but he's, again, speaking from firsthand experiences that Hamas was doing worse atrocities than even ISIS. Shooting women in between the legs, cutting off their breasts and playing soccer with them, burning babies in ovens, and other worse atrocities. That is happening and was happening. And we got protesters supporting this, literally supporting Palestine, free Palestine. You're supporting this. You're supporting this evil. How do you justify that? Literally, I mean, how are you justifying yourselves right now after watching these videos? Are you denying this? Can you deny this? I mean, I don't know how you deny this. So this next group of videos are going to demonstrate why Islam, and specifically the extremist Sharia Law of Islam, is the problem. Not Israel. We just proved it isn't Israel. Islam, the ideology, the Sharia Law ideology is the evil, is the problem. And it's spreading like a virus around the world. And we're going to demonstrate that here in these next few videos. This next video comes straight from New York. And this is filmed in New York.
We're done hiding. We're done. We're done being tortured and hurt and judged. This is the correct religion. This is the religion that all of humanity needs to be a part of, Islam. And we will not stop until it enters every home. So I want you to repeat after me. I want to hear it in every single district. It should tremble. Brooklyn should hear it. The Bronx should hear it. Queens should hear it. Say it as if the Ummah depends on this, my brothers and sisters. La ilaha illallah.
And we now have a mayor over there that supports this, or a potential mayor over there that literally is supporting this. They are a conquering religion. That's what they do. They're out there to conquer and to force everybody into their religion. You are either convert You die or you become a slave. Those are your options. That is in the Quran. You convert, you die, or you become a slave. Those are your only options.
If Zionist aggression is the reason for Hamas attacks on Jews in Israel, what's the reason for Boko Haram attacks on Christians in Nigeria? Jamaat al-Mujahideen attacks on Buddhists in Bangladesh? Lashkar-e-Taiba attacks on Hindus in Kashmir? Janjaweed attacks on Christians in Sudan? And thousands of other atrocities by Islamist groups. It's not about resistance to Zionism, national liberation, or natural resources. It's about religious extremism, imperialism, and conquest. There are different factions, but they have the same goal: force everyone to live under Islamic law, and torture, rape, and murder anyone who disagrees. It's called jihad. It's time to stop pretending it's anything else.
Pretty simple video because it kind of explains it. I mean, there's terrorist organizations all over the world, from the Sudan to all over the Middle East, all over northern Africa. And even though they're all different factions, like you got Hezbollah and you got Hamas and you got ISIS and you got the Taliban and the Mujahideen and all these other organizations, they all have the same religion. They all have the same goal in their mind, and that is to spread Sharia Law, this extremist Muslim religion. We're not talking about all of them, because there's a lot of peaceful people there that don't want to practice everything that's within the Quran, particularly the violent parts of it. But that's what it teaches, is you have to convert, die, or become a slave. And we need to stop denying that that's what the goal is. They're spreading throughout the United States, throughout Europe, and we're going to see that in these coming videos.
Islam came to conquer the world, conquered the entire world.
Ottomans, as the shield of the Ummah, defeated the British twice. If you want to bring back Khilafah...
Don't get angry at me that, hey, we don't have a caliphate. I'm sorry, okay? People talking about establishing Islamic superpower, I mean... how? Yeah. It's all I'm saying.
Allah promised that He will make you rulers upon the earth.
The caliphate is a government, a state, which rules by the Quran and Sunnah, and there is one leader, and that state has borders, but those borders they expand, and they literally annex other countries until the whole world is literally under that governing authority.
Islam is supposed to keep expanding and expanding and expanding and expanding until it takes over the entire world.
Islam is very clear, the Quran is very clear, the Hadith is very clear. All humankind must submit under Islam, period.
See, Islam is not just about your own individual submission to Allah. It is about that profound mission of subjugating all of creation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Again, there you have it, by the very Muslim leaders that are out there. I mean, that is a conglomerate of people saying what the goal is. It is to conquer the world. Literally to conquer the world and subjugate all people under the Islamic law, under Sharia law. That is what their God wants. It's undeniable. It's not a peaceful religion. They're not going to let other people live in peace. They're not going to let Israel live in peace. And if they conquer Israel, they're not going to let Europe or the United States live in peace. Israel is just a stepping stone to the next thing. They want to conquer the world and bring everybody under subjugation. That is it. And we got to just stop denying that that's what that is for.
Western leaders, your borders are fading. Your disease is being sucked out, and the unity of the Islamic Brotherhood is taking form. The sons of Islam have already pledged that this battle is a battle of either victory or martyrdom. We reject your flags, and the call for jihad has started, and it won't be long before it is you that will be feasted upon.
According to her, it won't be long before we're the ones feasted upon. I mean, they're calling for jihad. That's what it is. They reject all our flags. And this was in Copenhagen, Denmark, not in the United States, in Copenhagen. They reject all other flags. The only one that they accept is Sharia law and their extremist Islam ideology. That is it.
The point, in an entire ummah of 1.5 billion people, we are the only Muslims who have the political clout to change the system legally from within.
You can elect a person who wants the Sharia political engagement about the establishment of a Islamic political system entity to enact, these realities of the Sharia.
We have about 225 Muslim elected officials in the country. Today we have 35 offices for care nationwide. Tell me what you're doing different to help Islam to have deeper roots in this country and for the next generation to be ready to take over, inshallah.
So they want to have such deep roots in this country that they're controlling the political future. They've already got a lot of politicians in office, and we see that with Ilhan Omar. We're seeing that again, what's happening in New York and with others, to where the next generation can take over. It's being taught right here in the mosques within the United States borders. I mean, that's where that was, all within the United States, of what they are doing to gain the political clout to change this country from within. Not having to lift up arms, but to change it from within. And it is being successful. Look at how many people are giving them a pass, that are having completely different rules for those who are Muslim and those who are not, letting them get away with anything. Look at the man who just raped a 9-10-year-old girl, pulled her out of the backyard, and their own mosque, their own people submitted a letter to the judge saying, you have to take into account his customs. It's a different type of, it's a different ethnic background. He doesn't understand this. He doesn't have the same values and morals that we have. You have to take that into consideration. They should not be here with those type of morals and values at all. How is that allowed? How is that even thought to be acceptable in any way, shape, or form?
We cannot fool ourselves. There is an Islamic problem. Al-Qaeda, Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, ISIS, Boko Haram, all of them are killing by the name of Allah. They're not killing by the name of Jesus. They're not killing by the name of Jehovah. They're not killing by the name of Mahavira or the Buddha or Lao Tzu. They're killing by the name of Allah. There is an Islamic problem, and I think humanity needs to stand against this danger, because this danger is not only against the state of Israel. This danger, thank you. This danger is against the evolvement of mankind. When it comes to matters, universal issues, when we see waves of violence and darkness taking over and spreading, and we choose to stick our head in the sand with the name of political correctness, the truth is that we are afraid. And we are trying not to provoke them more. We are trying not to create a religious war. But there has been a religious war, whether you like it or not. The better way is to face it, to grow up, and face it with courage.
So again, this is the same gentleman we quoted in our second episode, him. He is the son of the Hamas leader, the guy that started Hamas. He was in that. He participated in that until he was imprisoned by the Israelis, and then he got out and went back to that and was tortured by his own people to try to find out if he gave up any information to Israelis. And then he left. He said, I am not for this anymore. And he left. And now he's completely outspoken against his own family, his own father, and demonstrating that Hamas and extremist Sharia Law Islamic religion is the problem. The Israelis are not the problem. The rest of the world is not the problem. They are the problem. And it's only starting with Israel, because it will grow through every nation. We already see that throughout England. We already see that throughout many other European countries. We'll show how it's spreading here in Texas, how it's spreading in Wisconsin and Minnesota. Detroit are going very, very extremist, and New York.
شو الوضع جوا؟ تفضلي.
الوضع كله سيء يا بني، حسبي الله علشان شاطونا وقتلونا في دورنا.
ومين قتلوكوا؟
حماس.
حماس قتلوكوا؟
حماس اللي قتلتنا، حماس اللي صوابتني وقتلتنا، حماس.
حماس مسؤولة عن كل اللي بنشوف هنا؟
كل اللي هي
كل الدمار؟
كله هي الدمار هي.
طيب ليش ما بنسمع صوتكم؟
والله ما احنا قادرين يا خالي، والله ما احنا قادرين نتنفس.
شو؟
حسبي الله عليها حماس، ينتقم منها حماس، دمرونا، دمروا اطفالنا، دمروا بيوتنا، احنا كنا عايشين، احنا مهداه انتوا حكمونا، بدناش حماس، كل الشعب بكره حماس، احنا مضطهدين من حماس كنا.
طيب ليش ما بنسمع صوتكم برا؟ ليش؟
بنموت لو احنا طلعنا، لو حكينا اي كلمه بقتلونا. انتوا مش عارفين الشعب غلبان، احنا الغلابه، الشعب غلبان رح
إذا رفعتي صوتك ضد حماس شو بده يكون؟
بيقتلونا، إرهابية، حماس إرهابية، قولوا يلا معاي، حماس إرهابية، حماس إرهابية، حماس إرهابية، حماس إرهابية، الله ينتقم منك يا سنوار، الله يشحن.
I mean, there's the Palestinian people there coming back from receiving aid from the U.S. and Israel, clearly stating that Hamas is the problem and that they will be killed for speaking against them. We've shown that a lot of them are getting aid from Israel and the U.S. If they are caught by Hamas people doing that, they literally get their hands cut off. But this is a disease and it is spreading. Look at what they're teaching in schools, both in Hamas or in Gaza, as well as right here in the United States and Pennsylvania. They're teaching the next generation jihad.
السلام بدناش اياه.
شو بيعلموكم عن حق العودة بالمدارس؟
ما احنا مشروع شهادة كلنا، واحنا لازم ندافع عن وطننا كتير، راح ناخذ حقنا والله ينتقم منهم ان شاء الله يموتوا كلهم. القدس عاصمة فلسطين وراح تضلها لنا، مش راح تتغير، راح تضلها لنا، المستوطنين اللي فيها كلهم راح ينتخوا.
I had a comment today in my comments saying, well, what about the West Bank? Hamas is not in the West Bank. What do you mean Hamas is not in the West Bank? What world are you living in? Hamas has always been in the West Bank. So is Hezbollah. So is Iranian operatives. They've all been in the West Bank. So is ISIS, for that matter. And they're teaching their children to be martyrs, that they must die on behalf of Israel or on behalf of Allah and destroy Israel. And from infancy, they are taught that. That is how the next generations are being destroyed. And we cover this in that second episode again, where the son Hamas goes through and he demonstrates how the next generation is being abused because of what they're teaching them. You think that's just over in the Middle East that they're teaching them? Watch this video right here in Pennsylvania, in a mosque right here in Pennsylvania within the borders of the United States.
ونقدم الأرواح دون تواني وسنضرب الأعناق عن أجسادهم ونحرر الأقصى الحزين العاري ونقود جيش الله منجز وعده ونسومهم سوء العذاب القاني.
So right here, they're teaching them to cut off the heads of the infidels and be martyrs in the case of Allah. In our own borders. So it's a disease that is spreading. And we're just demonstrating here that, again, that Israel is not the problem. That ideology is the problem, and it is spreading. This next section of videos is going to go and show how the media is just hook, line, and sinker biting into this and spreading it. Why? Because they themselves have a narrative that they want to spell. The narrative is anti-Israel. It's anti-Semitic. But it's also anti-U.S., anti-capitalism, pro-socialism, and obviously socialism and Sharia Law are going to conflict against each other. But right now, they're best friends with each other because they have the same goal, which is destroy freedom as we know it. But these videos are going to demonstrate how bad the media is right now in buying into the propaganda that they're putting out there.
Israel is the size of the state of New Jersey. So there are 21 Arab countries in the region, one Jewish state, and for some reason Israel is the big bad wolf. You can barely find it on the map. It's a tiny piece of land. The Jordan River over there to the east and the Mediterranean Sea. When people say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, they mean that piece of land completely clean. So ethnically cleansing the Jews from their ancestral land. Why is this anti-Semitic? It's anti-Semitic because if you don't allow only the Jewish people to have a state, if you're anti-Zionist, you're saying, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm just an anti-Zionist. Well, then which other country would you like to dismantle? Usually the answer to that is none, just Israel. So people that are obsessing over Israel are anti-Semitic, and that means cleansing that particular piece of land, which is the Jewish people's ancestral land.
It would be very similar, but not nearly as commentary as to say get everything from the Atlantic to Pacific, south of Canada, north of Mexico.
Yeah, America will be free.
Are you outraged with the war in Gaza? So am I. My name is Rawan Osman. I'm half Syrian, half Lebanese. Since October 7th, I visited Israel 9 times, and I want to testify before God and you, Israel is not the problem. Last week, Israel buried Shiri Bibas with her children Ariel and Kfir. Hamas said they had been arrested. Forensic reports show they were choked to death in Gaza. But many who point fingers at Israel might do better to look in the mirror. I asked Qatar, why didn't you arrest the Hamas chiefs in Doha and demand release of the hostages? Why did you finance terror? And I ask Iran, why do you send billions to Hamas and Hezbollah instead of liberating your own people who are suffering oppression and poverty? Egypt, you charged Gazans thousands of dollars to escape the war. How can you lecture about the morality of displacing Gazans? Jordan, why have you refused to accept any Gazans? Are they not your own people? Lebanon, instead of discussing Hezbollah's political role, ban the party. Syria, if the new president is sincere about his transformation, I ask him to return the body of Eli Cohen. It's been 6 decades. Allow his wife to bury him before she dies. Hamas abuses dead bodies. Be a better Arab. Be a better Muslim.
I mean, she's calling out all these neighboring countries, just calling them right out on the floor. Israel's not the problem. You guys are. You purposely let Hamas do what they're doing. Why? Because secretly behind the scenes, you're using Hamas and the Gazans as your proxies in this war against Israel, particularly Iran. Why isn't Egypt or Jordan or Syria or any of these countries taking any of the Gazans in? Why are they kicking them all out? Because they want to use them as pawns. I mean, it's the same thing Hamas is doing. They want to use them as pawns. They don't care about their lives, but they don't want to be in open conflict for fear of the world, for fear of the U.S. So it's a proxy state is what Gaza has become. It's a proxy state. And the previous video, from the river to the sea, from the Jordan River to the ocean, which in some areas is barely 7 miles wide, they want it completely ethnically cleansed. And you'll ask a lot of protesters here in the United States, well, what river and what sea? And they have no idea what river, what sea they're even talking about. They'll say the Black Sea, they'll see the Red Sea, they'll say a lot of things, and they have no idea what they're talking about. It is ethnically cleansing that country, that little speck of land where the Muslim countries have all this other land. It's about jihad. It is about spreading that extremist ideology. That's all it's ever been about.
85,000 children dead from malnutrition. 1 child dies every 10 minutes. 50% of hospitals destroyed by airstrikes, and nearly half of all children permanently stunted. Bodies and brains damaged for life. You think I'm talking about Gaza, right? Wrong. This is Yemen, and one of the worst humanitarian crises on earth. And your media doesn't want you to know. Let's talk. Since 2015, Yemen's war has killed over 377,000 people. Half of them children. Not from bombs, but from hunger, infection, dehydration. 85,000 children dead from starvation. 2.2 million acutely malnourished. Over 4.5 million displaced, and every 10 minutes a child dies. This isn't a natural disaster. It's a manufactured famine, a genocide, by siege, by blockade, by silence. So who's to blame? After the Arab Spring in 2011, Iran-backed Shia Houthis seized northern Yemen, including the capital. In 2015, Saudi Arabia formed a Sunni coalition backed by US, UK and France and launched a brutal bombing campaign. Since then, 23,000 plus Saudi airstrikes have happened, many hitting schools, homes, hospitals. And Houthis have shelled cities, laid landmines and blocked entire villages and food aid. Both sides use siege and starvation as war tactics. This isn't just a civil war, it's an Islamist power struggle where poor brown Muslim children die quietly because they're useless for propaganda. Yemen's tragedy is now 9 years old. Where's Al Jazeera's wall-to-wall coverage? Where are the Muslim influencers who scream for Gaza? Where is the Arab world's outrage? They fund militias, sell weapons, cry for Palestine, but hold no protests for Yemen. Why? Because when Muslims kill Muslims, it's called geopolitics. But when anyone else does, it's genocide. That's not justice, it's moral theater. Let me say it clearly, the media isn't showing you the world, it's showing you a script designed to provoke selective outrage. If Gaza is heartbreaking, then Yemen is being erased, and that should terrify you. Because truth shouldn't depend on politics. Human suffering doesn't have a hierarchy. If you only care when it's fashionable, you're not moral, you're being manipulated. So ask yourself, why haven't you seen this on the front page? Why aren't your favorite influencers talking about 85,000 dead children? Maybe because Yemen doesn't sell. But if you really care about justice, start here and stop falling for moral scams dressed as activism.
So Israel's not the problem, right? I mean, Yemen has its own problems. Syria, Iran have significantly more problems than Yemen has with the amount of people who are dying in those countries. And like I said, down in Africa, the Sudan, how many people are being slaughtered down there? Yet Israel's a problem. Israel is the one committing genocide. It's nobody else. But you see the same exact thing that's happening in Gaza, where the Hamas is starving their own people on purpose, their own women and children are dying because they're keeping food away from them, is currently happening in Yemen. But because they do not have Israel to blame for what is happening in Yemen, nobody's covering it because it doesn't meet the narrative, it doesn't hit the news cycle, and it doesn't meet a purpose. So Yemen stays quiet because it's Arab on Arab violence, it's Muslim on Muslim violence. But when it's Jewish on Muslim violence, all of a sudden now everybody starts crying about it. Again, just like a point I made a little while ago, like here in the United States, when it's black on black crime, no one says anything. It doesn't hit the news. They cover it up. But when it's white on black crime, then all of a sudden everybody's talking about it. And it doesn't make the race isn't the problem. What the problem is, the narrative that they're trying to stick out there. It's the narrative of hate. It's the narrative of violence. It's a narrative of division. And it's a lie that they're purposely trying to put out there to turn everybody on Israel, upon normal white guy. Defeat a narrative. If you really want truth, if you really want to protest, you should be protesting against all death and all violence, and not just when it's committed by Israel. That is hypocrisy. That is evil. And purposely trying to have Israel destroyed because of that narrative, and trying to push a narrative because you don't care about anything else but getting rid of Israel, makes you part of the problem. That's anti-Semitism. That is what's going to cause another Holocaust.
And those of us on the rational left need to be more comfortable pushing back against moral relativism and speaking with moral clarity and defending America and defending Western civilization, which is worth defending. Because I do feel like we live in an age of moral confusion.
Yeah.
You know, if you're, speaking of Israel, if you're an Arab woman in the Middle East, and if you're born in Israel, you know, you could rise to the highest echelons of Israeli society. You could become a member of the Knesset. You could become a member of the Israeli Supreme Court. You could be the judge that puts the prime minister in prison. Whereas if you're born in Afghanistan, you will have acid thrown in your face for daring to be literate. And anyone who fails to see the fundamental moral difference between those two realities is profoundly morally confused And I feel like those of us on the rational left should be at the forefront of combating that kind of moral nihilism and confusion.
That was better than I could have ever hoped anyone would say it.
So you got someone who's on the left saying us on the left need to be rational. We need to be human and recognize this evil for what it is. If you are an Arab growing up in Israeli society, you can reach the highest echelons of the Israeli society. You can be on the Supreme Court. You can be a business owner. You can do anything you want. You're free to do that. There's nothing in Israel that's going to stop you. But yet, if you're a woman in Afghanistan or Iraq or any of these other countries and you are caught teaching, you would be killed. If you find their daughters are literate and you got little girls who are literate, you'll have acid thrown in your face or you'll be killed. That's how bad it is. And yet we still have people supporting that and saying, no, they're justified in what they're doing. That's their religion, let them do it. And yet Israel's not justified in protecting themselves. That's moral relativism. I mean, that's exactly what he's talking about, which is you're an extremist on the left that is not letting a nation exist. So going into our own borders, I've had many comments on this. People are like, no, Sharia law is not here in the United States. What are you talking about? There's a community down in Texas that's setting up Sharia law. I couldn't believe it. In my own comments section, people were not believing it. Yet it's all over the news down in Texas. So here it is.
Retired from the Plano Police Department after 26 years of full-time law enforcement service. And I dealt with representatives of EPIC many times when I was the sergeant for the Plano Police Department, the training sergeant for the Plano PD. There seems to be a general misunderstanding that we're talking about a plan to build an Islamic Sharia-friendly community. The EPIC neighborhood already exists in Plano. It's been there for nearly 12 years, with 74 residential properties, a massive mosque, schools, a medical clinic, and multiple businesses. It also has an office of an Islamic financing institution called the UIF Corporation. The UIF Corporation is not a bank. It's a Michigan-based corporation whose publicly stated purpose is to, quote, engage in financial transactions that are Sharia compliant, end quote. Those are their words, not mine. Local government officials south of here have known for years that only Muslims can purchase homes inside that neighborhood. You have to be a member of their mosque to live there. The first house built in that neighborhood was built right next to the Plano Police Academy. It's a huge structure with two separate front doors. The rear of the property is just a few feet from a large outdoor warning siren. The house has a large second-story platform overlooking the restricted access parking lot where the police department stored specialized vehicles such as bomb trucks, bomb disposal equipment, and the SWAT team's armored vehicle. I am a court-recognized expert in SWAT team tactics and procedures. That house has all the hallmarks of a fortress and a command post. The rear of the house looks a lot like an observation post and a shooting platform. Why would somebody choose to build a house so close to a giant warning siren and a police training site? Why would someone build a huge platform overlooking all those specialized police emergency vehicles? The first owner of that house is a leader in the EPIC neighborhood, and he is also the co-founder of the Yaqeen Institute for Islamic Research. And I urge everyone to visit their website and read what it has to say about instituting Sharia law. This is not a matter of radicals hiding in plain sight. They're not hiding. They've been open about their beliefs and their intent. Local government decision makers have failed to ask hard questions for fear of negative publicity and being labeled as bigots. I'm not here to spread innuendo or to make unfounded accusations. I'm asking everyone to simply look at the evidence and the confirmed facts that are already in existence. Thank you for your time, Judge.
This community has been around for 12 years now, and there's plot plans and designs that have been submitted. The Texas Governor Abbott, has been talking about it. He's actually sent the National Guard over there because they're not letting anybody but those who believe in extremist Muslim to live in there. It goes against our urban and housing laws that race, color, religion, or ethnicity, none of that matters when you're buying a house. So that's everything stands up against our laws. But yet that community's been there for a number of years, practicing their own laws, having their own police force, their own banks, their own businesses. And it's 100% underneath Sharia law, and they're keeping all others out. That needs to be shut down, and obviously Governor Abbott is trying to get that shut down. And people are like, well, how is that possible? How is that even real? Well, you just saw the video. I mean, this guy just said everything. But if you don't believe him, here's a podcast from that community saying it themselves that this is real. I mean, let's keep the evidence going here.
179-acre land. So like you said, brother, masjid, homes, a total Muslim village. So we're still debating on the name, but it's going to be something Muslim name and a village attached to it, right? The names of the streets, Khalid ibn al-Walid, Tariq bin Ziyad, like all the great conquerors. Like people need to Google those conquerors and know like what are we made of. Yeah, like Google Khalid ibn al-Walid. Google Tariq bin Ziyad, you know? And then we want to have different sections like Andalusia, this, that, like all our past glories, and we want to bring it back. The way what we're doing, brother, like you cannot make it exclusive, like non-Muslims not allowed, kuffar not allowed. What we're doing, there's something called association fee. I don't know what it's called in Dubai. Like your maintenance fee that you pay yearly, cutting the service fee, to cut the grass, to remove the snow and whatnot. So that service fee will put there 75% of the service fee you're paying goes to the masjid.
So they will automatically not want to come.
Automatically, if you are a practicing Christian, I would advise you, why help the Muslims, you know? Let Muslims do their own thing, right? So this is the way we're going to put the clause. And our attorney already put it there. So we have, brother, think about it. Like a guy comes from Bangladesh, have no idea about anything. Brother, we're putting an application now where we're selecting the names of the streets in the United States of America. We're putting the subdivision laws. Like, hey, this is the law. One of the laws being your yearly contribution, 75% of it goes to support the masjid that's going to be there.
So this community, again, is already established, and they're naming the streets after their conquerors. And I would recommend that you do what he says and look them up. These conquerors are genocidal maniacs of how much they hurt, killed, and destroyed other nations as they conquered the Middle East. Absolutely evil, and yet they're proud of these men, and they're going to be naming their streets after them, and they idolize them. They were evil. They were genocidal. Now they're putting together rules within their own community and HOA fees and all these other fees where 75% of all those fees go to the mosque. And that is how they're deterring anybody else from moving into the communities so that they're not exactly against the urban and housing development laws, but discouraging Christians and anybody else from moving in there because no one wants to be supporting the mosque directly or this extremist Muslim religion directly. And as you can see, they're happy about it. He was excited. He was leaning forward and said, really, you're getting away with that? Right here in the borders of the United States. And it's happening in Texas. It's happening in Detroit. There's other communities that it's happening in right now. This is an article that came out in London that kind of shows that there's no difference between all these nations. So if you read it, there are no differences between Jordanians, Palestinians, Syrians, and Lebanese. We are all one people. It is for political reasons only that we are carefully emphasize our Palestinian identity, for it is in the national interest of the Arabs to encourage the existence of Palestinians against Zionism. Yes, the existence of separate Palestinian identity is there only for tactical reasons. And they actually published that in a paper showing that Palestine isn't real. There's nothing real about Palestine. It was never a country. It's never a people. It's only been a thing for the last 30, 40 years. They have no history. They have no economy. They have no country. They have no flag. There's no dollar. There's nothing. There's no money, no currency, nothing. It is a fake facade they put out there to gather support against Israel. And that's the only reason why the Palestinian state even exists. And yet now you still have the UN pushing it for that two-state solution. And we showed in that video, in our second video, how Clinton tried to do a two-state solution, and Yasser Arafat said it will never work because that is not our goal. Our goal is war. Our goal is cleansing that. We don't want the Jews in there at all. So it will never, ever, ever be accepted by his people. And that's the way Hamas is. That's the way it is, going clear back to Yasser Arafat back in the 80s and 90s. There is no peace over there. There's no two-state solution. There will never be a two-state solution. That is not what the ideology teaches. And without getting rid of the ideology, you will never have peace in those nations. So going to that of Palestine, we're going to show that Palestine is not real. It has never existed. So this next group of videos will demonstrate Palestine is a figment. It's not real.
The very basis of it, the very foundation of what so-called Palestine is not real, because in reality there is no such thing. Now, to build all these false accusations of apartheid, of genocide, of ethnic cleansing, only the Jewish people in the Middle East suffered ethnic cleansing and displacement. Only the Jewish people. The Arabs did not suffer the same consequences of the 1967 war, because Israel did not force them to leave the territory after the war, while Egypt, your country, gave the Jewish people a 24-hour notice to depart Egypt. But the Jewish people did not do the same towards the Arabs. And this is how we have 2 million Arabs in Israel. So all the accusations, they're just baseless.
So again, this is the son of Hamas saying again, Palestine is not real. It has never existed. It's only there to create a backstory, to foment violence, and to create a narrative. All these other countries had the ability to accept Palestinians into their nations as equal Arabs, and they refused to do so. So let's look at some of this history from those who are there and know the history from firsthand experience.
I want to start with the accusation of the occupation. Israel was minding its own business ever since it existed. It reached out to the Arabic world. It wanted to have peace with the Arabic world. In 1964, when the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, was founded, the West Bank was in the hands of Jordan. It was Jordan. And Gaza was in the hands of Egypt. It was Egypt. So the PLO was founded in 1964, not because of any occupation. They wanted to drive the Jews into the sea and get rid of every single Jew in the Middle East. Israel tried repeating. The only reason the Palestinians lost in 67 and they lost Gaza and the West Bank is because they preempted an attack against Israel. And over again, Israel reached out to them to make peace with them. In 2000, Ehud Barak offered them 97% of the territories back, and they refused it again and again and again. In 2005, when Israel withdrew out of Gaza, they said, okay, we're going to give you your own state, we're going to give you your own territory. Israel forcibly removed its own people fighting the IDF by force, removed them out of Gaza. Not only to remove the people, they dug out dead Jews' bones from the cemeteries because they knew exactly what the Palestinians are going to do to the cemeteries. So in 2005, when Israel withdrew out of Gaza, there wasn't one Jew alive or dead in Gaza. They turned over the key to them and said, okay, great, now build your own place, you are independent. I know people that Israel even left them the greenhouses. Israel was exporting 50 million flowers to Europe in 2004 out of Gaza. The greenhouses, the fruits, the vegetables, the flowers. They left them to the Palestinians so the Palestinians can start they can have an industry where they can support themselves. I know a businessman from New York who even raised $14 million to make sure the Palestinians will be able to get paid salaries as they move over and they continue building the greenhouses. And what did the Palestinians do within 24 hours after Israel withdrew? Not only they destroyed every single Jewish synagogue in the area, they destroyed the greenhouses, ripped out the pipe, and even stole the copper out of the pipe. And then they had an election. So in their first election, the first woman elected to the cabinet of Hamas was a woman by the name Nidal, the mother of al-Muqawama, they called her, the mother of the resistance. And she ran on the platform, I killed 3 of my sons, because she had videos of her sons, she dressing them in suicide bombers to go kill Israelis. She said, I already gave up 3 for the cause. I have another 7 to give. That's why she was elected. So that's a democratic election for Hamas. Israel did not put the Palestinians in a prison in Gaza. Hamas put the Palestinians in a prison in Gaza. Gaza could have been turned into Singapore. They had the money. They had more money pouring into the Palestinian territories and still do from all over the world. And what did they do with it? Build a tunnel infrastructure underneath bigger than the subway system in New York instead of helping their people. So those who scream about the occupation, the Palestinians have brought this on themselves again and again and again.
Wow. So Bridget Gabriel is Arabic. She's not Israeli. And she's saying the absolute truth that when Israel moved out in 2005, they gave the Palestinians an entire economy and infrastructure, everything that they needed. The flowers, the fields, the farms, everything that they needed. And they immediately went in there and destroyed everything. Why? Because it had Jewish hands on it. Instead of going in there and creating a life for themselves, being appreciative of their new state, living in peace, and just existing, they could not accept that. And from even before then, after then, it has always been about, from the river to the sea, genocide. It's exterminate the Jewish state. This two-state solution has never been a solution, never will be a solution, because you're fighting an ideology. You're not fighting a people that want to be free. It has never been, let Palestine be free. It has never been about the occupation, because the occupation is a falsity. It is a figment of your imagination. It has never been real. Israelis have never occupied their own country. The Palestinians, that is not real. The Arabs that are there, they're the ones that have been occupying that, and they're refusing to live in peace and cohabitate that area. 1,000s are doing that within Israel right now without a problem, yet the extremists refuse to do that. And we still point to the fact that no, they're occupying. We point to the fact that they're the ones causing the problem, that they're the ones attacking. They're out blatant lies. Israel has never been the aggressor. They've never openly attacked. Not once. We saw that with the video on Joe Rogan with Mike Kennedy. They've never been the aggressors. It has always been about the ideology and genocide, getting rid of them completely.
When Hamas held their first election, the first female woman to be elected to the cabinet was a mother by the name Nidal. The reason why she was elected is because she used her platform, the videos for her commercials for her campaign was her dressing her sons in a suicide belt, putting the suicide belt around them and sending them out to blow themselves to smithereen to kill Christians and Jews. And she ran on, her slogan was, I already gave 3, I have another 7 to give. So don't give me the innocent Palestinian mothers and children and daughters. You know, I come from that part of the world. You may have to be politically correct and talk about, oh, the poor suffering people. I know these poor suffering people. I understand their language. They are not poor and they are not suffering. They are filled with hatred to the level, like one of the hostages, one of the Israeli hostages that were released, a woman. They interviewed her on Israeli television. She said, I heard conversations in the house where I was. And she said, and then I stopped being worried about me being a prisoner and started worrying about the future. And what she heard was the family talking about, they can kill us all, they can destroy us all. If we have one last baby alive, one baby, we will continue fighting Israel until that last one baby dies. This is the mentality that they have, and that's the reality that the West cannot accept.
And we can't accept it. We don't understand that type of ideology where it is taught from the cradle all the way up. And their whole religion, the whole ideology is about dying for it and about suicide, essentially, or martyrdom on behalf of the extremist Sharia law and getting rid of Israel. And then from Israel, it's going to be the rest of the country. It's not going to stop there. It's going to go throughout Europe. It's going to go out to the United States. Like I've said before, it's either you convert, you die, or you become a slave. That's all they believe in. And they will do it down to the last man. They do not understand negotiation. There's no coming to a 50-50 agreement. There's no negotiating with them. They don't believe in any of that. To them, negotiation is weakness. And if you start negotiating with them, they'll start attacking. And in their religion, it is okay to lie if it progresses the Allah's goals. They can lie as much as they want. They could be right in your face and saying, yes, we'll agree to this, we'll agree to that. In the back of their minds, they said not a word of it's true, because in the end, all we're doing is progressing the goals of Sharia law and what Allah wants for us. That's all they believe in. And lying is permissible in that situation, completely and 100%. They'll tell you that themselves. So you can't believe what they're saying, because they only have one goal in mind, and that is conquering the world.
What should we do as Palestinians? I think we should start changing our way of thinking in this conflict. And it starts with the basis, with the narrative. We Palestinians need to stop ignoring and rejecting and not recognizing the historical rights of Jews in this land, because it's a fact. Why should I continue denying it? Jews has been here for thousands of years. I even don't agree on the Zionist narrative, which says Jews left and waited a lot until they came back. Jews never left. Sometimes maybe there was only one Jew, but there was always Jewish presence in this land. And we need to remind our Jewish brothers, you have never been alone here. There was always others. And these others are us. Yes, maybe there hasn't been any time a Palestinian people or a Palestinian state. But there are millions of people who would like to give themselves the identity of being Palestinians. And it should be respected.
So you have a Palestinian here that at least recognizes that it's always been a Jewish state. The Jews have always been there for thousands of years. So it is not about occupation. At least he's of the mindset that they could coexist. Whether he's lying about that or not, we don't know. But he sounds legitimate, and there's probably a lot of people over there that just want to live in peace. We've already seen that throughout Israel right now. There's lots of Arabic people within Israel right now, going to universities, going to work, owning businesses that love living amongst Israelis. And I could bring up tons of those videos of the actual Arabs, and we'll have one video that actually demonstrates that he lives amongst the Israelis, and he's like, I have no problems. I've been here for years and plan on continuing to do so, and we can live in peace. And the Israelis will do that. They'll live in peace. But the extremist Muslims, the Sharia law, the Hamas, they will never, ever accept that. That ideology will never, ever accept that at all. And it's the ideology that has to go. There's a gentleman here that makes a video that could not have described this better. I want to play his video, and he's just a gentleman off of Instagram that kind of explains it, and I like how he explains it.
You know what these Arab countries all have in common? Saudi Arabia, UAE, Jordan, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Egypt. Take a guess. They've all banned public support for terrorist Hamas. Now, you know which countries have daily pro-Hamas protests? The idiots in the US, UK, Europe, Canada, Australia. Imagine hating Jews so much that you end up defending a terrorist regime that literally kills women for letting you see their hair.
That's what's happening here. Literally, you hate Jews so much that you're defending terrorist organizations. When every other Islamic country, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, all these other, have told Hamas that they need to lay down their arms and give up, that they're done with the fighting. They're literally making it against the law to support anything that has to do with Hamas. And yet, here in the United States, like you said, UK, Canada, Australia, we're the ones defending terrorists? When did we get so evil that we're the ones defending terrorism? And those countries over there are not.
Gaza starts a war to kill as many Israelis as possible. And all you see on the BBC and Sky News, as we see in America on our TV, is dead Gazans. That's all you see. I shudder to think if in World War II the same media covered World War II, you would have seen far more dead German civilians than dead British civilians. But it takes a very, very frail moral mind to believe that you determine right and wrong by the number of dead. That's what we are told. Look at how many Gazans were killed and how few Israelis. Well, look at how few Brits were killed and how many more Germans were. Does that make the Germans right in World War II? That's the facile moral thinking that pervades our world.
I mean, there's Mr. Prager himself, and again, he could not have said it better. Right and wrong is not determined by the number of dead. There's a very, very easy, clear way to determine between right and wrong. Those who want peace and those who do not. Those who are trying to save life and those who do not. And the Muslims, Hamas, Sharia Law, they are not trying to prevent death. They want it. They want the genocide. They want the extermination. Yet on the Israeli side, they just want peace. They just want to live in peace. That seems pretty morally clear to me. Why is there a fight about that? Where's the ambiguity there? I don't see any ambiguity there. Why in my comment section there's so much ambiguity there? You can't defend this. It's a defenseless position. Here's Mike Huckabee on the same topics, and we can hear what he has to say about this.
That Hamas will have no future in Gaza. It can't. This was not simply a cold-blooded murder in which people came across the borders and shot innocent people. They massacred them. And they did it in the way that was most physically painful and in the way that was most personally humiliating. And worse, they videotaped themselves doing it because they were proud of it. And they published it with pride. And they announced repeatedly that they would do it again. Hamas is not a government. It's not a standing army. It is a terrorist organization, and they acted like it. And they must be treated as such. And if confirmed, I would hope that this unfortunate, horrific war that has resulted in many, many deaths, including Americans, the taking of hostages for a longer period of time than even the hostages in 1979 were taken during the Iranian takeover, that all of that could come to an end and there could be accountability for what was done to Jewish people on October the 7th of 2023.
I think it's interesting. It's the European nations and Canada and other Western civilized nations who are pushing Israel harder than they're pushing Hamas. And it's fascinating that this week it was the Saudis, the Qataris, and the Emiratis who said to Hamas, lay down your weapons, let the hostages go. My gosh, think about what a contrast that is. And here's the other part of it. Has France or the UK or Canada or the Netherlands or Ireland, have they sent any food to Gaza? No, they haven't. Have they sent any volunteers? No, they haven't. Have they offered to take any refugees from Gaza? Not one. The hypocrisy is glaring.
So as we know, he was confirmed as the Middle East envoy for President Trump in this administration, and he knows that territory very, very well, and he understands what Hamas is trying to do. And then he goes and looks at all these other nations and says, well, if you're in such support of Gaza and the Palestinians, why don't you put your money where your mouth is? Where is the support? You haven't sent any aid. You haven't put any boots on the ground to help anybody. You're doing absolutely nothing. All you care about is that Israel gives up and lets Gaza and the Palestinians do whatever they want. Because you really don't support that country. You don't care if it exists or doesn't exist. All these other nations have completely turned against Israel. And that's prophecy and completion from the Bible. I mean, we all know that. Those of us who are Christian knew that that was going to happen. But again, whether you believe that or not, seeing it live and in person, that is still evil. It is still wrong to support that type of genocide, to support that type of evil ideology and not recognizing it for what it is. Because it is evil. It is an evil ideology that should not exist. So looking at this video, you're looking at the border in between Egypt and Palestine, or Gaza, because Palestine doesn't really exist. And we have protesters here in the United States protesting our own border between the United States and Mexico. Yet look what Egypt has put in between Gaza and Egypt, absolutely refusing to take any of these Palestinians, any of them. Where's their support if they think Israel is in such wrong? Why aren't they taking any of these refugees in? Again, why isn't Jordan or Syria or Lebanon, any of them taking in any of these refugees? None of them want them. In fact, they're putting up these massive barriers. Fences are 4 or 5 fences, one right after the other, stacked up against each other to make sure that they don't come across. And yet, Israel's the problem? Israel's the problem? Nobody wants them? And everybody here is so anti-Israel, so anti-Semitic, yet people that are there on the ground are doing nothing to support them, and you're supporting them and what they're doing? Where's the genocide now? Who's committing the genocide now? Who is not supporting who? Why does Israel all of a sudden have the only obligation when nobody else is standing up? Not any of these other countries, like Mike Huckabee said. Not any of these fellow Muslim countries are standing up. Nobody. Israel's got 100% of the responsibility for some reason. Yeah, that's asinine to even think that, to believe that. Last set of videos here, and we'll end this video. These next set of videos is specifically on propaganda and how bad the Hamas propaganda really is. Because the vast majority of the videos of suffering that are coming out of Gaza are fake. Fake. Proving that the suffering is not as bad as they're saying it is over there. That the humanitarian crisis is not as bad. That the starvation is not near as bad. There's videos on restaurants that are fully open and operational over there, and people taking Instagram and TikTok pictures and posting it inside of Gaza. We'll first start with what I mentioned before, is an Arabic man that lives within Israel and is saying, well, I don't have any problems.
Israel is discriminating against Arabs.
I'm an Arab citizen of Israel. I vote, work, travel, and speak freely. Next.
Israel is committing genocide.
I'm Arab. I serve in the IDF. We target terrorists, not civilians. Next.
Israel doesn't let Arabs into bomb shelters.
We Arabs and Jews go to the same bomb shelter together. Next.
Israel is kicking Arabs out of their homes.
My family has been in the same house for decades. Next.
Israel doesn't give Arabs equal rights.
Arab judges, doctors, teachers, and MPs disagree. Next.
Israel hates Muslims.
I hear the mosque muezzins 5 times a day. No one shuts it down. Next.
Israel is erasing Arab culture.
We have an Arabic theaters, TV channels, radio stations, websites, all running freely in Israel. Try New Life.
And a lot of people say, well, he's fighting for the IDF. He's a traitor to the cause of Hamas and the Gazans. But he's not the only one. There are thousands, hundreds of thousands of Arabs that live within the borders of Israel. I know a few that are in the universities, friends of Selwyn Gordon, friends of others that I've spoken to that have Arabic friends that are literally in universities, that have businesses on main streets, that travel to work and used to travel to work between Gaza and Israel, and they were all just fine. They said, we didn't have a problem. It's those who believe the extremist ideology in the Sharia that are the problems, and it just has to be exterminated. So again, proving that Israel is not the problem, that Israel wants peace and can live in peace with the Arabic neighbors and with Arabic citizens within their own borders without a problem, without genocide, without killing them, without arresting them, without treating them differently. None of that happens. It's all on the other side. And again, if you don't believe that, you're part of the problem, because you want to believe that you specifically are anti-Israel and anti-Semitic, and you don't care if they exist or don't exist. After this many videos, this is undeniable at this point.
AP, as far as I know, I was the first staffer to erase information from a story because we were threatened by Hamas, which happened at the very end of 2008. We had a great reporter in Gaza, a Palestinian, who had always been really an excellent reporter. We had a detail in a story. The detail was a crucial one. It was that Hamas fighters were dressed as civilians and were being counted as civilians in the death toll. An important thing to know, that went out in an AP story. The reporter called me a few hours later. It was clear that someone had spoken to him. And he told me, I was on the desk in Jerusalem, so I was kind of writing the story from the main bureau in Jerusalem. And he said, Mati, you have to take that detail out of the story. And it was clear that someone had threatened him. I took the detail out of the story. I suggested to our editors that we note in an editor's note that we were now complying with Hamas censorship. I was overruled. And from that point in time, the AP, like all of its sister organizations, collaborates with Hamas censorship in Gaza. What does that mean? You'll see a lot of dead civilians and you won't see dead militants. You won't have a clear idea of what the Hamas military strategy is. And this is the kicker, the center of the coverage will be a number, a casualty number that is provided to the press by something called the Gaza Health Ministry, which is Hamas. And we've been doing that since 2008. And it's a way of basically settling the story before you get into any other information. Because when you put, when you say 50 Palestinians were killed and 1 Israeli on a given day, it doesn't matter what else you say. The numbers kind of tell their own story, and it's a way of kind of settling the story with something that sounds like a concrete statistic, and the statistic is being, given to us by one of the combatant sides. But because the reporters sympathize with that side, they're happy to play along. So since 2008, certainly since 2014, when we had another serious war in Gaza, the press has not been covering in Gaza. The press has been essentially an amplifier for one of the most poisonous ideologies on earth. Hamas has figured out how to make the press amplify its messaging rather than covering Hamas. There are no Western reporters in Gaza. All of the reporters in Gaza are Palestinians, and those people fall into 3 categories. Some of them identify with Hamas. Some of them are intimidated by Hamas and won't cross Hamas, which makes a lot of sense. I wouldn't want to cross Hamas either. And the third category is people who actually belong to Hamas. That's where the information from Gaza is coming from. And if you're credulous, then of course you're going to get a story that makes Israel look pretty bad.
From the horse's mouth right there. I mean, he's an ex-AP reporter, full on saying that the AP News and all other organizations over there are completely in the pockets of Hamas. If Hamas says don't cover this or cover this in a certain way, they do it. So you can't believe a single story that's coming out of Gaza because Hamas controls it all. Like you said, there's not a single reporter in Gaza that is not a Palestinian or controlled by Hamas. Whether they believe in Hamas, they fear Hamas or something. It is all controlled. The death reports, that don't show true death reports and are exaggerated, obviously don't show any militant deaths and only show everything as civilians. Even the story that he was on the desk covering was purposely silenced because somebody from Hamas threatened the reporter, says, hey, we can't have you reporting on how many militants were in that, and that they were purposely trying to control those deaths. He was on the news desk in Israel and in Gaza at the time. And he has since then come out vocally, and you can listen to that one again, rewind this and listen to it again, and specifically listen to what he has to say. The stories are controlled. You cannot believe what comes from Gaza unless it's coming from one of these third-party people that I've showed you all these videos from that we know is not controlled by Hamas, that we know is first-hand information not coming from Hamas. And that's the problem with the vast majority of people in my comment section, the vast majority of people out there that are all pro-Palestinian and chanting from the river to the sea and chanting Israel or Palestine will be free. You're believing every story that comes from Hamas, which means you are in the back pocket. You're in the pocketbook of Hamas because you are believing the propaganda. Now let's look at the propaganda itself, because we have propaganda videos.
وجثامينهم عائلات استهدفت أشلاء في هذا المكان كما تشاهدون.
paid child actors right there. And there's video after video after video of paid actors over there. And there's a lot of adult paid actors over there that are driven around, and they make videos out of them. And all that's what you see. That's what's put out there. That's what everybody believes is where the starving is coming from. Starving children. Videos like this. And they're riding around a nice SUV. Paid actors. You don't believe me? Watch this one. So you have a setup scene right there with a burned out car, curtains around so that you can't see the back street of what's really behind these people. And then you have a controlled crowd that is acting like they're starving. They've got their pots and pans out. They're trying to get at food. And yet when the person filming pans out, nothing else is happening. The streets are empty. There's a school over where kids are at school being taught. You can see it for yourself. It's in the video. It's propaganda. The videos are fake. Again, don't believe me? Let's try another one.
Not engage with him, please. Is Zionist? Yes.
I'm exposing one paid protester for every 100 followers I get. This man is not only a professional protester, but something much worse. Watch this. Here he is leading a protest right in front of the White House, back again in New York City leading the charge, and again outside the Trump building on Wall Street. Here's where things take a horrific turn. This is him standing with a man wearing a Hamas headband, so that made me want to dig deeper, especially because he may be a threat to the American people. That's when I found him honoring a terrorist that killed American soldiers. Here he is speaking at a vigil for Nasrallah, the former Secretary General of Hezbollah, the very proxy that killed over 600 American soldiers in Iraq. Now this man actually may be responsible for the health of some New Yorkers right now, because I found him with the Healthcare Workers United for Palestine movement and again wearing a Test and Trace Corps jacket. That's part of the New York State government, the people responsible for doing medical testing. Now would you want this man to have anything to do with your healthcare?
We just did a video this last week with Tiara Auxier, who's a state representative here in the state of Utah. And we covered specifically a lot of videos are coming out about paid protesters throughout the United States. So I would highly recommend you just watch this last podcast that's coming out. It actually comes out this Sunday. Look for Tiara Auxier, Congresswoman here in Utah, and then go to the end of that video and you'll see our entire discussion on paid protesters here in the United States. But I wanted to show this, but I also wanted to show paid protesters inside of Gaza. So watch this next video here. So they're specifically going around the rubble and filming like she's living there and cleaning pots and pans and trying to live in the rubble. It's false propaganda. There's nothing real about that. Anyway, I could show you video after video after video. I'm not going to do that, but I mean, if I get enough comments again in my comments section again wanting more of this, and I can definitely pull it together, all the videos where it shows camera crews just like the one you saw going out in the rubble, and literally paid actors, video after video, same actors in all the videos, going to the rubble and producing, literally producing like Gaza would, like it said there, or Polly would, like in some videos, taking a play off of Hollywood and producing videos that are fake, propaganda videos, trying to show that there's starvation, that there's a humanitarian crisis, there's absolute suffering, which there is, but not to the extent. I mean, Gaza and the Hamas is specifically trying to put out such a narrative that gets everybody to believing in on it, that we get what we're getting here in the United States, which is all these riots, all these protests, all these pro-Palestinian protests, all this river to the sea crap, and our universities and our politicians all buying into this and believing that this is real. It is not real. It is all based there to create anti-Semitism, to destroy the nation of Israel, and to turn the world on Israel. That's what it's designed to do. And we've gone through enough videos today to prove that. There's nobody here that can go into my comment section and now say, you're lying. You're spreading evil. You're indoctrinating others. No. We just spread the truth. We just displayed the truth in the truest form possible, because we just went video after video after video. Everybody on the ground, people actually from there, people that are there talking about it. You can't ask for more evidence than what we just laid out today. And again, if you can get past this video and still say that I'm evil, that I'm wrong, that I'm the one lying, you need to check your facts. You need to check yourself, because you're part of the problem. You know, you're definitely part of the problem. And it's not about what's true or what's not true anymore. It's about how much you hate Israel and the Jews for some reason. I mean, what did they do to you? They have the right to exist, whether you believe in God or not. They have the right to exist. They have the right to their own nation, and it's been their nation, their land from the beginning. It has never been Palestinian land. There's no such thing. The Gazans that are there, the Arabs that are there, can live in perfect peace. There are many of them that are living in perfect peace with the Israelites there. What we're seeing throughout the world, throughout the United States, throughout Europe, is a disease that is spreading. It is the extremist Muslim Sharia law that is spreading. It is that conquering mentality that everybody must be subjugated, that everybody must join that extremist ideology. Like I said, you either convert, you die, or you become a slave. That's what they believe in. And it's up to the rest of us to ensure that knowledge of this gets out there and we're aware of it and we fight against that. Now, us as Christians, we believe in the Christ-like love. We believe in everybody has a chance. But we also believe in defending ourselves. We also believe that evil must be fought against. We don't subjugate ourselves to evil. We don't give in to evil. That has never been a Christian thing to do. Even the Israelites fought against evil underneath God's command. I hope this video helps everybody understand that, I mean, as Christians, yeah, we believe in love. We believe in a Christ-like sacrifice. We believe in freedom. We believe in small government. We believe that everybody has a chance to redeem themselves and become a better person, essentially repent. We all believe in that. And a lot of people are going to accuse us of, well, why aren't you turning the other cheek? Like Christ taught. Well, there comes a certain point where we have to defend ourselves and we have to fight against evil. And we have to prevent evil from spreading. It is goodness that needs to spread. It's a Christ-like love that needs to spread. It's that Christian ideology that needs to spread. And we do that by talking, by what we call preaching. It is a more humble way of spreading something that is good. We're not out there with arms. We're not out there to conquer the world. We're not out there with a false ideology that says you must go this way or die. We're not saying the Jews can't exist. We're not saying the Buddhists or anybody else can't exist. You're free to practice your religion, but you're not free to enforce it upon others. That is not part of it. And that's, again, what the extremist Muslim religion is conquering. It's jihad. It is forcing it upon others. And we are completely against that. And we will fight for that, against that. We will take up our own arms and fight against that if necessary. We will defend our freedoms. We will defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That is our creed. And I hope a lot of people that are watching this will actually get some bravery and stand up for it and actually start defending it. Defending it in the comments section. Spread this information around. And lastly, please like, subscribe to our channel. We had it boosted for a while, but YouTube dramatically suppresses it. I mean, it's very hard to get impressions anywhere. That YouTube doesn't do that naturally. So it really depends on those of you who like and agree with what we're saying, what we're trying to do here to get us out there. So please share this information with everybody you can and help us get the good word out. We appreciate you being on with us today and enduring through all these videos, because it's a lot of information that we put out there. A lot of information, but it was good information that you really need to be aware of and know about, especially if you're trying to defend what is right. You can refer back to this video many times and pull up these videos and show it to people. See, there it is right there, proof. So I hope you use these videos for those instances, and let us know if we need to put out anything else, or you have any questions or anything that you would like us to additionally cover. Appreciate you being on board with us, and we'll talk to you in the next video.